The aid agencies pulled out of the north of Sri Lanka around the middle of September, and at that point a vast number of IDPs had displaced from the Mannar district into Kilinochchi and then further into the east of the Vani district. Well, with the onset of the monsoon, these people really need shelter. You've now got 300,000 plus people who are in an area in the east of the Vani, and without shelter people get sick, malaria rises, you get people living in very deplorable conditions. As an aid worker, it was incredibly difficult to be pulled out from that area. Although I understand why we were pulled out from that area, it was emotionally challenging. It was a great feeling of guilt that suddenly you were leaving, and really in the community's greatest time of need. As an aid worker, you were going in the opposite direction, and that was very, very difficult for myself and my colleagues.
The situation is becoming increasingly serious for at least 230,000 civilians who are trapped between government forces who have been advancing northwards and the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, an armed opposition group to the government. Although the government has recognised that food, water and shelter are important needs, they have not actually allowed in enough assistance. If, for example, deliveries are delayed, even if they're delayed for a day or two, families may be going short. There are already signs of early malnutrition amongst the young people, and we have to remember that when there's a humanitarian crisis, it is the most vulnerable in that population who will get affected worse. So our real concern now is that as the aid agencies, especially the UN agencies, have been forced to pull out of the Vani, that makes the population increasingly vulnerable to LTT abuses. We know, for example, families have told us stories of how they've hidden children in pits in the ground for up to a month at a time to protect them from being snatched at night by the Tamil Tigers. So as there are now no witnesses, no sort of buffer between the civilian population and the Tamil Tigers, our real concern is that this population is much more vulnerable to those abuses. Amnesty International wants the government to give assurances that there will be more deliveries of urgent humanitarian assistance into the Vani. We feel that there should be more food, but especially more shelter provision, and then also basic medicines for people. Many of these families are simply forgotten and they're left to suffer without continued spotlight put on their situation.